Most people think that flying a pet is as simple as booking a ticket. But behind every relocation is a process most owners don't see. Today, I'll be speaking to the vet behind one of Asia's largest pet relocation agencies, Ferndale Pet Travel. Hi, Dr. Matt. Could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us what it is that you do?
Hi, Nabs. Hi. So I'm Dr. Matthew from Ferndale Pet Travel. I'm a veterinarian. I'm originally from the UK. I've been working as a veterinarian for 25 years, and I'm the director for Ferndale. So Ferndale is Asia's pet travel company. We have offices in Singapore and we have offices in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong was where we first started, and then we expanded more recently to Singapore, and we enjoy shipping pets all around the world.
Okay, before we get into the technical side of things, do you have pets yourself?
Yes. So, actually, we have a toy poodle called Pepper, who's been in some of my YouTube videos before on our channel. But actually, Pepper at 15 got a type of bone cancer of the jaw, and actually passed away quite quickly after 3 months of having that. So we just lost Pepper about 2 weeks ago. We don't have Pepper any longer, but we're hoping we can adopt another dog or more pets.
So, what was Pepper like?
Yeah, Pepper's really sweet. She is a lovely girl, and actually in our family we've got two daughters, and for the last 8 or more years they've kind of all grown up together. So she was a great family member, and she would always be waiting for the kids to come home from school.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's very sweet.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
That's okay. Yeah.
So, what made you choose this line of work? Because it's not exactly a typical path.
So, originally I was doing straightforward, more standard dog and cat kind of, and like a hospital work for treating dogs and cats. So basically, I'm just going to be candid and share the story. First of all, I started doing veterinary house calls in Hong Kong, and then we ended up doing quite a lot of house calls for Ferndale. Actually, at that time, this is close to 10 years ago. Ferndale was owned by another lady who's now retired and moved to New Zealand, and myself at the time was doing a lot of the house calls for Ferndale, for the pet travel company, and we were doing a lot of their health certificates and export checks and everything they need for these pets relocating. And there was a lot of overlap between their work and our work, because house calls, you're on the road all the time and driving around, and so there's a lot of logistics. But I think even more importantly than that, on a more of emotional level, a lot of veterinary work in hospitals can be quite stressful and can be quite emotionally draining, because you're dealing with sick animals all the time. And so most of the animals you see are are sick. I mean, of course, you're sometimes seeing puppies coming in for a vaccine, but more often than not, you're doing life-saving surgeries to try to help deal with broken legs or wounds or cancer or something like this. And so a lot of veterinary work, like a lot of maybe even human healthcare work, can be quite heavy, because you're dealing with emotional loss and trying to heal animals, and some of the time you can't do it. You can't get every pet better. But for pet travel, that moment when the pet flies from overseas and is reunited with the owner is so kind of happy and positive and heartwarming. So you're keeping families together, and there's always like this kind of really wonderful moment when pets are imported or exported, and they reunite with the owners. It's a inspiring and happy moment for me and for the team. And so it's very nice to be doing this, which is quite light and happy work, as opposed to sometimes some of the hospital work can get quite heavy when it's all healthcare and sick animals.
Ah, okay. So you're not just involved in the relocation, but you're also a vet.
Yeah.
So how does being vet led actually change the level of care for the pets?
Okay. It's just like being a pet owner means that you can be much more understanding of of the of the challenges that it would take to relocate a pet across the world. So obviously, being a pet owner yourself means that you can view things through the eye of the other, the person who's relocating, right? But being a veterinarian, apart from being able to have compassion and see things from the other people's perspective, we can look at things from a medical health point of view, and from the maybe from the animal's perspective, with the concept of the animal behavior, and trying to make the experience fear free, and knowing the anatomy, understanding pain, having a concept of the physical and mental well-being of the pet, means that we can have a very holistic, or very entire understanding of every aspect of the journey. So there's, of course, logistics is important, and the airline is important, um, but also actually the health and safety of the pet is number one, and so we're able to really understand the pet's health and safety.
Have you ever had a case where your veterinary background made a critical difference in a relocation?
Well, I mean, we've done things like I've done health certificates for pets. So this is where you do the medical checkup before they travel. I did have one dog where we did a health certificate. So as part of the health certificate, you talk to the pet parent, but also you have to do a physical examination. So you listen to the heart, you examine the dog's mouth and ears and eyes, and feel this body. When I was pressing on the dog's abdomen, his tummy, um, actually, when I'm pressing the kind of the bladder area, so towards the lower tummy, I could feel something unusual there. And actually, I could feel some bladder stones. Feels like marbles, like maybe like some marbles within a bag. So, because there's quite a few bladder stones. And so I hadn't seen the vet for a while. I detected that this dog had stones in its bladder. And so we cancelled the travel, or delayed the travel, and said we had to first fix these stones, because if the stone moved and lodged in the neck of the bladder, then it could cause a blockage, and then it's an emergency and you can't urinate. And so it's life threatening. Essentially, by having a good physical exam, this is just little preventative steps. I think it's like the untold, unsaid little things which make a difference. Or I personally do a lot of Boas tests. Boas test is a brachycephalic obstruction airway test. What this is for flat-faced dogs like a bulldog, French bulldog, English bulldog, Shih Tzu, things like this. They have a small nose, they have like a flattened face, and their nostrils can be quite small, and their breathing can be compromised. And so for some of the airlines, it's mandatory to do the special test. And for some of the airlines, we just recommend to do this test. So often, if it's, for example, a dog which is traveling to Australia with Qantas, and it's a bulldog, we are obliged to do this test. But if it was traveling to Germany with Lufthansa, we don't have to do the test. But if it's also a bulldog, we would generally recommend it as a safety precaution. But often when we do these tests, what we do is we recommend to do it early, so then we can see, like, so there's different components. There's a examination of the nostrils. There's listening to the throat. So you're trying to detect how is the breathing. Can they inhale and exhale normally, and not pant with too much difficulty, and not potentially struggle and overheat. For some cases, for some dogs, and we discover maybe they're borderline case. But if we can improve their body weight, help them lose weight, because maybe if they're overweight, if we can help them improve their fitness, if they're unfit. So when they're in the travel crate, they're more calm, then they're not likely to overreact and be too hyperactive. So all of these things can mean that a dog which maybe might not have passed the test later can pass the test. What that means is essentially like the safety is improved by doing some certain steps. I can't offhand think of a specific incident which being a vet has made a critical incident on a specific flight. I mean, I'm sure there are dozens of incidents, but I think the the main impact is that there's hundreds of pets whose safety is improved because we've been diligent and conscientious about ensuring they're crate trained, so they're comfortable and relaxed in the travel crate. Who we've given really good advice on whether or not really your pet should travel now, or actually they should travel 3 months later because the weather's not right, or or 6 months later after they've lost some more weight and they've dealt with their anxieties. So things like that.
What are some health considerations that you think might be common during travel owners often overlook?
Some health considerations. Okay, so if pets have seizure medication and are on seizures, then I'm pretty cautious about traveling unless really it's been clarified that with their own primary regular veterinarian that the seizures are really very stable and have been stabilized, and there's not been any seizures for a while. Because of course, while they're in the airplane, the pets are not supervised, and they're not directly supervised. So, so unless you're lucky enough to have your pet together with you in the cabin, there's nobody down there walking around. So the pets are checked when they're put on the plane, and they're checked when they're removed. And so, we don't recommend having your dog there who's having, seizures and epilepsy, because it's not, there's nobody to help if your dog has a very severe seizure. So I mean, a lot of pets can travel who are on medication. It just depends on what the condition is, and that they're stable.
So, when you first entered this industry, what surprised you the most?
Maybe the cost of the flight tickets for pets having to travel, because it's based on the volume of the travel box. So the height and the weight and the width and the length, it's not based on how big the pet is. It's based on the physical crate size. That's a surprise. I guess I was surprised by pets being so resilient, because a lot of pets can arrive in Singapore from the UK or from Australia, and they come out of the box and like they're wagging the tail. That was a pleasant surprise, because you imagine, maybe it's too difficult for animals, and of course it could be for an individual,
Yeah.
but on the whole, pets are resilient. Yeah.
And I think this really shows how much thought and care actually goes into every journey. Thank you so much for taking the time to share all of this with us.
Okay. Okay. Thanks so much.
So if you have any questions on pet relocation, feel free to drop them in the comments down below. Or you can visit our website. The link is in the bio. Thank you. Bye.